The 4,000 square miles of Yellowstone was the first national park to be established in the world in 1872. Today, this is one of the few remaining places in the USA where herds of buffalo can still be seen in the wild. But these herds are a mere shadow of what they used to be before the Europeans came to the States. For then there were millions of these animals right across the country, but which were systematically slaughtered for food and hides, and now the few remaining herds can only be measured in hundreds. This is early summer, and these animals are shedding their winter coats and so look quite scruffy, but when all the old material is gone, they look very formidable in their black and dark brown hides. Much of Yellowstone consists of large forest areas with open plains in between, and it is in these areas that the buffaloes and other animals can be found, such as the mule deer, goats, little playful ground squirrels, the ever-present chipmunks, grey jays and many other birds, and the occasional yellow-bellied marmot. The forests, plains and lakes represent by far the greatest proportion of the park, but two other areas attract a much higher concentration of visitors. These are the hot thermal areas and the Yellowstone Canyon. Old Faithful is probably the best known geyser in the world, but it is only one of many in this area. It erupts about every 80 minutes, and each eruption lasts for about 1.5 to 5 minutes, during which some 4,000 to 8,000 gallons of steaming hot water is sent up to a height of 100 to 180 feet. It has been doing this consistently since it was first discovered in the 19th century, hence its name, but no one really knows when it first started erupting. This is an area of geysers, hot springs, fumaroles and mud pots. How is it that these thermal areas exist in the world? Well, it's all to do with the thickness of the Earth's crust at these points. Yellowstone sits on the top of an active volcano, and magma or molten rock is only some 3 to 8 miles below the surface. Water from rain, melting snow or natural springs seeps down through the cracks and fissures in the rocks and is heated by the hot magma to high temperatures. This boiling water is then forced upwards and builds up pressure under the Earth's surface, which eventually is sufficient to force the hot water up through the outlet channels and is expelled into the atmosphere. This action reduces the pressure down below, so that the geyser ceases to blow until such time as the pressure is once again built up. Hot springs and fumaroles have much less congestion down below the surface, and so hot water, or just steam in the case of the fumaroles, is emitted all the time without interruption. As this hot water comes up through the earth, it brings with it all sorts of minerals, and these are deposited on the Earth's surface and are the reason for the multicoloured pools and outlets to be seen over the whole area. Some of these colours are quite outstanding. Over thousands of years, the mineral deposits brought up by the water have built up to form the cones of some of the geysers. All the different geysers have their own eruption patterns, which can vary from as little as 7 to 10 minutes up to 4 to 6 months. Mud pots are acidic hotspots with a limited water supply. Hydrogen sulfide, which smells like bad eggs, comes from far down below. On the surface, microorganisms interact with this gas, which helps to convert some of it into sulfuric acid. It is this acid which breaks down the rock into thick clay, and as the gas escapes through the mud, it causes it to bubble and plop. Some 50 miles north of Old Faithful is another thermal area known as Mammoth Hot Springs. Here, the underground plumbing is much more open, and so no pressure is built up to form geysers, but only hot water is emitted to the surface. Again, rainwater and melting snow seeps into the limestone rocks and is heated and forced up to the surface. On its way up, the hot water dissolves carbon dioxide into a weak carbonic acid, which dissolves some of the limestone constituents, and it is this calcium carbonate which is deposited in such varied terrace patterns on the surface. Heat-loving microorganisms create the tapestries of colour where the hot water flows. Natural colours and yellows predominate in the hottest water, and orange, browns and greens in the cooler areas. These terraces are living sculptures and change continuously, day by day and year by year. Here we can see, as in few other places on earth, rocks forming before our eyes. Yellowstone Canyon was formed as a result of violent volcanic eruptions some 500,000 years ago, and since that time wind, water and glacial action has produced this present-day natural treasure. The Yellowstone River flows along the canyon some 800 to 1200 feet below the rim, and the canyon itself varies from 1500 to 4000 feet in width. This is still an active volcanic and thermal region, and steam outlets can be seen on the canyon walls. The multicolored rocks are the result of hydrothermal action on the basic rock formation, and it is this predominantly yellow hue which gives rise to the name Yellowstone. There are two waterfalls in the canyon. The upper falls drop about 110 feet, whilst the more impressive lower falls drop more than 300 feet. It is possible to follow trails on both the north and south rims, and in places minor trails descend down into the canyon itself, the most famous being Uncle Tom's Trail, which goes down about 500 feet to the top of the lower falls. This may have been the first designated national park, but it must still be one of the most outstanding, with its unique thermal features and the Yellowstone Canyon. What wonderful foresight those elder statesmen had to preserve such a wonderful area for all the people of the USA to enjoy, and in these later years by the thousands of overseas visitors as well.